the podcast. I don't even have a separate Marvel name. I haven't done one of these since um, I actually, I think WandaVision, maybe.
Wow.
Um,
Whole year ago.
yeah, that was a while ago. Which, by the way, that was awesome. I actually introduced Straw Hat and Jay Stoops on that episode, and had Rayburn on. We had a stacked cast. It was amazing.
That is
But
a stack
That's
cast. Wow.
awesome. Yeah.
um, this one is just as good. This is just. But yeah, let's go around, and I'll have you guys introduce yourselves. So I'll start. And but by the way, I know I sent some like an outline, but the goal for this is to be conversational. Feel free to jump in and talk whenever. If I'm talking, feel free to interrupt me at any time. That's totally cool. And if you want to go off topic or mention stuff, there's going to be stuff, especially about this show, that I don't know.
Sure.
Unknowns for me.
Hmm.
If you want to bring them out, please do. But we'll start by asking, who are you? Where can we find your awesome content? And then we know we all love Miss Marvel. If you could choose who the next hero that we're going to bring to the table, who would you choose? I'll start with Neebs.
Okay. So my name is Neves. I go by Watch with Neves on all my social media platforms, whether it's Twitter, Instagram, or TikTok. Mostly on TikTok. And I have a podcast called Salam Nerds, where we talk about all things TV, coming from Star Wars, Marvel, to even like The Bachelor. We'll talk about whatever it comes up. Been going strong ever since. And as far as the next character that I would like to see, I think one of my favorite characters that I would like to see is Dust from the X-Men. And now that we know that the X-Men may be coming, I think she would be a really cool addition. And I would definitely like to see a character like that.
Interesting. Okay, I
Mm.
like it.
I like that
And
you went X-Men.
Yeah.
Yeah.
how about you, Maria?
So you can find me on TikTok mostly. I go under Call Me by the Same Maria, which is a mouthful. But TikTok is where I started out. I started out with TV content. I love film, but I'm mostly very enthusiastic about television and am involved with all the fandoms. And the MCU doing TV right now has just been like two of my favorite passions coming together. And then Miss Marvel being Pakistani Muslim is just like my personal passion coming out. So you can, if you want to see my Miss Marvel content or my TV content or any of it, please follow me on TikTok. I'm slowly expanding and reaching other platforms and social media accounts. And I was going to say Miles Morales, but now that you said X-Men, I really want them to do Rogue better. So
Mm,
Yeah.
because
yeah.
she's in the I don't know if she's like in the X-Men universe now or in our MC universe, but she needs another introduction for sure.
There's no like comic accurate or even cartoon
Yeah.
accurate Rogue. That would be
No,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because my introduction was for probably a lot of people to X Men is the '90s show,
Yeah.
which was great.
Hmm.
Um, but like the Rogue we get introduced has already stolen Carol Danvers' powers and stuff like that. Like we don't
Yeah.
spend time
Hmm.
with the character. There's no build up or anything like that. Um, I got Nate Wardrop saying Daisy Ridley as Rogue.
Ooh,
Mm.
yeah.
I can see that.
I can see that too. I would like that.
Yeah. I have Died in the Force. I
Gambit.
really want them to just do Gambit right.
A lot of people want to see Gambit.
Yeah.
Gambit is somebody people have been wanting to see since like the X2 United came out.
They didn't do him
You,
justice at
you
all.
saw his name on the list in the
Yeah.
computer.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And then we got X-Men Wolverine.
And we don't talk about that. Yeah.
That actor could have done. He did what he could with what he was given. But
Yeah.
With what he was given, yeah, it was barely there.
yeah.
He's the guy from Friday Night Lights. He's actually a really good actor. Friday Night
Mhm.
Lights is such a great show.
Mhm.
Yeah, Taylor Kitsch.
Ooh,
Yeah,
wow.
I'd love to see him brought into the universe just as someone else. Also, and I think a lot of people are starting to agree with this. Give me a black Gambit. Like he's
Ooh, that's a good
Louisiana. He's
idea.
like the whole
Asian, yeah.
area. Is,
Yeah, it's right there. It's like they could definitely build off the story.
I
yeah.
heard that someone brought up Beyonce. They were like, they can do it. They could really, have someone from the South be black. There's no reason they can't.
Yeah, for sure.
I just there's certain characters where I think it kind of fits better and doesn't take anything away from the character, because whenever we get into culture and things like that, the two questions are, what does it take away and what does it add? I think it
Mhm.
could add a whole, and I don't see anything that it would take away.
Oh, you know who would be a great Black Gambit? The guy from Bridgerton. I think he could pull it off.
Oh my god, that's such a good idea. What's his name? Reggae Sean. That
Yeah,
would be a
he
really good.
would be a good.
I was trying to fan cast him as we speak. So I'm glad you said that.
He could
That's
pull
a
off his
really good one. Yeah, he would be great for Gambit.
Nate Watcher says Ben Barnes is Gambit. It is brought out that he is, in the Punisher
Mhm.
Yeah.
thing, and how that fits in, we don't quite know yet. But I, as a good friend of mine, would say Ben Barnes for everything. Every friend
Yeah.
she's in love with Ben Barnes, and
Yeah. They can
Yeah.
do it. I mean, they cast Mahershala Ali for Blade, and he was in Luke Cage.
That's
Could
true.
happen.
That is true.
Could happen.
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, even Gemma Chan,
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
she's
been in
into
the MCU
multiple. Yeah.
twice,
Mhm.
and MCU proper twice. So yeah, I don't know. So it sounds like y'all are familiar with stuff, but I'm curious, what is your history with the character Miss Marvel, with comic books, with Marvel in general, with any of this medium? Yeah, what's your history with it? Feel free
So,
to go, whoever.
I can start if
yeah,
because
sure, go ahead.
mine's pretty short. So we started with X-Men, which was perfect because that is my start to Marvel. Is that '90s cartoon show with X-Men? I hate to say this, but I was more of a DC girl growing up, and I read more DC comics. So it wasn't until the MCU did I actually like fully start learning about more of the characters besides the X-Men universe. I have not read a single comic from Marvel though, but if there was one, it would have been Miss Marvel because not only is it like newer and it seems like less overwhelming to start reading comics that way, but it's also just like some it's just too close. It hits too close to home for me not to read it. I've researched almost everything I can about it, and I know a lot of stories that I know I would want to read more into. But yeah, I have watched every single MCU movie as it was coming out since it started coming out. So from Iron Man 1, every movie that came out since, I've watched and stayed with it. So I'm a huge fan of Marvel and the MCU just because of like being involved with like I think 15 years of the MCU building and expanding. So
Yeah, it's 2008.
yeah. So it's that is what kind of started my fan into the fandom. And I wanted to read Miss Marvel comics, but I decided to watch the medium of Miss Marvel by itself before I read the comics. And
Yeah, and that's good. I actually do that with a lot of things as well. Is like, it's like, okay, everyone always complains that the written version is better than the on-screen version. So I'm gonna get the on-screen version first, love it,
yeah.
then get this one and love it more, rather
Mm.
than go here and then complain.
Yeah.
How about you? How about you, Neebs?
So, I got into Comic Con around 2012. I was like, what is this Comic Con thing? Like everyone goes to. So I just decided to go one year, and I just like fell in love with like the fandoms. And I was like, oh my God, I just met like a whole room full of people that are just like me, that like I have been suppressing and hiding this part of me forever. So I just fell in love there. And then a few years later, how I got introduced to Miss Marvel is actually really interesting. So I'm Muslim, I'm Pakistani, and I'm from New Jersey. And I actually went on a date with somebody who's related to Sana Anamat, the creator of Miss Marvel.
Wow.
Like her, I forgot she said, she's like, my cousin or second cousin is wrote a comic book about a Muslim superhero, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And she was like, for Marvel. I'm like, no, that's not check. That can't be. And then like a few months later, I see it come out, and I'm just like, that's the comic book she was talking about. And I read it, and I was like, oh, it's just for little kids. Oh, it's cool. It's nice to have a little representation. But then when I started reading the subject matter and the stuff they're talking about, I'm like, this is not just for little kids. There's a lot of extra stuff in here. This is like how I felt when I was a teenager. This is how I felt being Pakistani in New Jersey. This is so accurate. The references are so accurate. Like it's like somebody saw my life and was like put it on page, and like I just fell in love with the comic ever since.
Yeah, and I can relate to that myself. Like when I read it, I was a grown ass man, reading Miss Marvel, but I read it and I was like, why do I identify so hard with this? Like obviously I'm not a girl, I'm not Pakistani, I'm not Muslim, I don't live in New Jersey, but it's a story of someone coming into their own when they've always been and felt othered their entire
Mhm.
life.
Mhm.
And that is relatable to the majority of the United States now.
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
for sure.
And so this the book, the first run, it was actually one of the very first gifts I ever got from my wife, and so she loves the character now as well. And even my older sister came and stayed with me for a while. There's a whole terrible, awkward story about that, but she found it and read it herself. I thought she was going to steal the book, but like I caught her like breaking down crying because she related to it so hard. And it's so weird because you don't have to be all of the things in order to relate to the character, which is so weird that
Mhm.
why is there such a disconnect with some people and someone like Miss
Yeah.
Marvel,
Yeah.
but they can watch The Boys and relate to Homelander?
That's
Uh,
weird,
That
uh,
ain't
right?
that ain't
That's
your
weird.
life.
yeah,
Uh,
that says a
Like
lot in itself.
like these people are people who make superhero content on the internet and can't relate to a girl who makes superhero content on the internet, but they
Yeah,
can relate to a billionaire playboy philanthropist who's an electrical
yeah,
engineer and a genius. Sure, bro.
right. Yeah,
Sure.
yeah. It's been speaking more a lot on other nuances that have existed in the fandom, basically.
um, yeah, I know that part is well. I honestly feel uh, like Miss Marvel is the new Spider-Man, and the
Yeah.
fact that
Hmm.
everyone can relate to the character. Of course, for me growing up, it was Spider-Man. It was the '90s animated Spider-Man
Hmm.
show,
Sure.
which in my mind is still the best. That show still goes hard.
It's
Yeah.
so brought
Um,
up.
Shocker.
Follow you to the ends of the earth. Oh God, he put his whole ankle in that, and um, but uh, I feel like this is the most relatable for the next generation who is able to grow up with all of this stuff already existing, and I just
Mhm.
think that's so cool.
It really is. That's like the most, um, because for me, it's like retroactively reading it and wishing like, oh, I wish I had this as a teenager. I wish like this was there for me. But like imagining that a new generation of not just Pakistani and Muslim girls, but just anyone who feels othered growing up here has this now in the MCU. In the MCU, one of the most popular franchises that exists
Mhm.
worldwide now is just so beautiful and so awesome. And that is why hyping the show was like worth it because of
Yeah.
the new generation and having that voice for them.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so elephant in the room: Inhumans, mutants. How do you guys how are we feeling? Um, are we gonna get the little musical motif in every project from now on?
Na-na-na-na-na.
I'm there for it. It made me so excited, so I'm okay with it.
uh, I mean, what do you think about the switch? And do you like Inhumans? Do you care about the Inhumans?
So for me, like, after reading the history about like how the Inhumans came about with like Promoter and Feige and like the push, and then Sana just came out said she originally wanted her to be a mutant. And I was like, oh, interesting.
Mhm.
I think it's really good. I think people have like concerns about it, which are valid, but I don't think those concerns are going to come into play. Like if you become a mutant, it automatically means you're an X-Men. If you're an X-Men, you're going to be a side character and you're going to be sidelined, right? Miss Marvel is not a character if anyone wants to be sidelined. They want her to be a headliner, be her own thing. And just because you're a mutant doesn't make you an X-Men. So I think that's where the little bit of the disconnect is. And the Inhumans, man, they weren't going anywhere.
Yeah.
Like Black Bolt is great, he's awesome, but like let's face it, man. Um, Agents of Shield did as much as they could. They try to make him cool. They try to make it like really interesting. But when that movie came out, Inhumans, everyone was like, "Nah, we're gonna pass."
Yeah. I mean, I agree with that sentiment. I feel like by making her immune, this kind of solidifies her role in the MCU as well, because like it does seem like they're suppressing Inhumans a lot in the MCU for their history. And we have other immunes that already exist in the MCU. So I feel like this kind of just like solidifies Kamala's role in the MCU, which is what I want the most.
Also, I just want to say I am very, very petty. So the fact that all these fanboys were like not watching Miss Marvel and
Yeah.
didn't get to experience this amazing like thing that happened at the end of the because they love that stuff. That's what they live for. And they ignored this show. And then we got one of the biggest reveals at the end of it. The irony is just so delicious.
And I'm like so proud of that because I remember someone asking me like, "What do you want for the finale?" I'm like, I want a reason for the fanboys to watch this show. Like, I want them to be like, "We missed out on like amazing Easter eggs that are gonna be so important," and like they delivered. So they knew what they were doing. They're pretty petty too, I would say.
Also, I love that it didn't really take away from the story. Like this was just like
Yeah.
a little sprinkle
Mhm.
at the top of a really, really good Sunday. But it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah.
part of the Sunday at all.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't what the show was writing on by any means.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think if the show The Inhumans was just not kneecapped, you know, we would be living in a whole different universe now.
Mhm.
How are you going to start the show by taking away everyone's powers? You know what I mean? When you haven't even established them.
Yeah,
Like,
that's true.
Yeah.
that's maybe a season 2 thing to do. Let's see how they grow and develop without their power. You can't just. I don't know. It's such a weird move.
I feel like
and
I'm gonna say I feel like everything about the powers was really just written in there to set up the Marvels. That's what I feel like. I was like, listen, all of this is the setup for the Marvels, and like everything else is about the family, and that's what everybody cares about. So everything else was like, you know, amazing, well written character, the character development, the heart was there, and this power stuff was like, yeah, this is to set up Captain Marvel and that movie.
Yeah,
I could see that.
Okay, well, I mean, yeah. Now that we're getting into it, let's talk about the show overall. You know, what did you? Any overall thoughts? Like, if I will say, there's a specific episode. I can't recall if it was episode 3 or 4. I think it was episode 3, where so much happened in that episode. I felt it needed to be 2 episodes. I feel like we got introduced
a lot of episodes
to Cameron, and then his mom at the very end, and then it was just like it went so fast to like, hey, you should help us, I'm gonna kill you. And you're like,
yeah, I
listen,
agree.
you gotta
so I don't know if
the oven first, you know.
Yeah, I don't know if you read the article, but Disha K. Ali came out and said they had so much more to do with the clandestines and like do it all filled out, and because of COVID, they weren't able to. They were like, there's a lot of story that got left out, and they said it was due to COVID. A lot of COVID restrictions screwed up because like you don't matter. This show was filmed in 2020. I mean, it came out 2 years later because of delays, but like this was like at the peak of COVID, so it suffered a lot from that. And I agree, the clandestines, they weren't that well written. They were very lacking. But I really feel like the show did the best they could. And I'm very happy with the results. Like very, very happy. In terms of representation, like it's phenomenal. In terms of the family dynamics, it's phenomenal. In fact, there's actually stuff in here that I like better than the source material. Like the way she got her name, the way she got her costume. Like those things are so meaningful now. The way she got her symbol. Like they took all of these things that meant nothing because they were just passed on from another superhero, and she made it part of her culture. She made it part of our culture, and that was so significant. So now when little girls wear these costumes, they're literally wearing costumes from their own culture. It's their own thing. They own it. And I love that.
And I mean, he said a lot of what I was thinking, but I will say that like, I know that not everything was like perfect. And I do have like some issues with certain choices that were made, but I will say that this show was doing the most in every single episode and overall as a series. Like just as someone who's like a TV enthusiast, every episode had its own like plot and point, and like had an overall message of representation in the backdrop. Like that was a choice that the MCU made. They could have just made this a origin story about Kamala, like learning to like use her powers, trying to figure out an origin story. They didn't need to add a whole Muslim shadi in the wedding in the background, but they did. They added every single part, and they showed that. They showed all the dynamics of the relationships between her family. Then they got her origin. Then they went back to Pakistan. Then they had a partition story. Like they did a whole. They used representation as a storyline in itself, on top of introducing a character, on top of solidifying her into the MCU, and then while making big strides in media the whole time. Into 6 episodes. They did so much.
Thing is,
yeah,
it's really tough. Like people think that these shows are in a vacuum, but they're not. There's like scheduling conflicts. There's like 6 episodes. You have to write in so much and get so much done in just 6 episodes. It was a really tough show to make. Like it was.
And I think they executed it really well. Like even if like the clandestine story was a little like it fell off a bit, it still was like, well, at least they did so much other stuff in that episode that made up for the story. Like I still stand by that it was a really well written show because of like how much they were juggling to write within a like 40-minute episode in a 6-part series. So
yeah. Also, I don't even consider the clandestines the real villains, right? I feel like the DODC was the real villains, and to have a government agency be the villains of a Muslim character, like that's perfect. Like, come on.
And
like,
they did it in a way that
ran
was
into the mosque, and he's like, "We're probably being monitored already." So
that's so true. That's a real thing in New York City. The Muslims of New York City sued what you call the NYPD and won because they were being surveillance and it got caught. That's a real thing. That's not like something as a joke, and it's like really funny for them to throw that back in their face. I thought that was really funny. But
and they did.
Yeah,
sorry, go ahead. Yeah, I was like, and they did it in a way that wasn't like something that's been seen before, because usually like this is not like a new storyline that like, oh, the FBI is involved with like Muslim surveillance or like there's self-surveillance happening, but it's usually told in a story of like not from the Muslim side. It's always told from the other side. So this is the first time they use it as a way to like represent the Muslim culture for what it really is and like the beauty of it. So I'm really impressed with how they took that storyline of the villain but made it to like highlight the hero. So it's a good twist.
Oh, go ahead.
I was going to add that, like, I like the fact like we didn't need any character development for the government agency because they've had real life character development since the Patriot Act.
Yes.
No, I was gonna ask, because there's a few things that like I felt shook about. You know, I spoke to Mario about some of it where, you know, the wedding was beautiful, but it was the first time I had ever heard I don't know, I don't want to mispronounce it.
Allahu Akbar.
Yeah, it was the first time I've heard it said in a good context. I've only ever seen it, and which is wild to me, because like it didn't hit me that like, no, it's used in a positive context like 99.999%
yeah,
of
it
the
really
time.
is.
How is it I've never come across this?
And like, I'm so grateful for your conversation, because that was the first time I realized, like, this is what I've been feeling about the show from the beginning, is that it is making history in media in general, like outside of the MCU for a second. Like, let's get out of our own little bubble of the fandom and like think about the impact of the show when it comes to the larger scale of Western media and like Muslim representation. This is the first time probably Allahu Akbar was seen in a positive light. And I didn't realize that like it doesn't exist as much until our conversation. So
And you have to understand that, like, we Muslims, we notice that stuff more. We're more hypersensitive to like seeing that, and even we have never seen it shown that way before. It's so wild, and that was really sad for me to realize that, like, even me, who's always aware, like, I saw a woman wearing a hijab in Doctor Strange, and I was like, that was the only thing I was concerned about. And she was an extra; she wasn't even important. So I'm hyper aware of.
I remember that. I remember that moment.
I'm hyper aware of like, stuff like that, and I've never noticed that anyone ever used that in a positive light. And I was like, wow, this is sad.
Because like for us, sorry, Jamie, cut you up. For us, it's like,
I mean, I want you to keep going, but also if you could include, because I had also never heard of the partition.
Oh yeah, well, that's a lot in itself too. Yeah. Well, I would say for us, it's like, it's one thing for us to finally hear it be said the way it's supposed to be said, and then we realize that it has like this impact on the other people that probably don't usually interact with Muslims. And same with the partition. Like, we all have our own history with the partition. We all have it's just so tied to our family. Like, it's literally like our family tea coming out, essentially, in a way that we haven't even addressed it. So like, to see it on screen in a way that we can finally talk about it, like the partition episode is the first time I was able to actually ask my parents, okay, what actually happened? Because I've heard stories and pieces. Both sides of my grandparents had passed away. My aunt that was involved has unfortunately passed away. So this is the first time I got to hear their story completely. And then at the same time, it was like so educational for the masses to actually finally see that, and like validates us and the experience in itself, while also helps us heal in the same time. The show did so much. It's just incredible how much the show was able to accomplish in its time.
when Amr says that every Pakistani family has a partition story, none of them are good.
Yeah. And we don't talk about it. It's so weird. Like we just don't ever address it. But it's also because like we're still reeling from it. We're still like going through it. We're still like learning from it. So it's just this is the first time they let us like kind of stop and like process too.
So-
That Disney show.
So I actually had a psychologist come on my podcast, and she is a psychologist who did her dissertation on the partition and
wow.
intergenerational trauma. And she talks about how the reason it's so difficult for us is because trauma is temporal. So if you have a traumatic event that happened to you, say it happened in India, and you lived in Pakistan for 60 years, you still consider India your home, because when you experience trauma, you cannot leave that state. Trauma is not something that happened in the past. It's constant. It's always happening. It's temporal.
Mhm.
And then that's why for a lot of people, it's very, very difficult to talk about. And it really reflects in their parenting style, because you see that Sana was very neglecting of Maniba. And then Maniba was the opposite, and she was like a helicopter parent to Kamala. And you see that generational trauma transcend generations. It was really cool. It's really interesting. It's a very smart show. And I know people have called it a kid's show, but they don't understand how intelligent the show is.
Yeah. It's funny you brought that up because like that's what I want to go into in like psychiatry and do my just like, go into the South Asian analysis. But yeah, no, it's if I know it was about a teenage girl, and yes, it was set in a very like fun way with the animation, but like that doesn't mean it won't be like deep. It's like, have you watched a Pixar movie? They can be for the masses. Like it's not just made for one audience. And I feel like I can't help but feel like because it was a teenage girl, it was downplayed for like how intelligent it was. And
a teenage girl of color.
Yes.
Yeah, it's someone pointed out like, why is it that we all just hate teenage girls? And you're like,
yeah,
that's not true. Like, oh yeah, no, growing up, if girls liked it, we hated it, regardless of what it was. I had to pretend like I didn't love NSYNC because that's what the girls liked. My first 2 CDs, Big Willie style, Will Smith, and NSYNC.
Good choices. Good choices.
I was more of a Backstreet Boys. I want it that way, but I'll let it slide.
I was Team NSYNC.
Is a whole bop, and it's
I still remember that music video. That's an iconic music video.
That's a good one. No, but I randomly just like walking down the street, I'd be like, "Tell me why." Like randomly, I don't care. Brooklyn Nine-Nine brought that back.
Oh yeah, that's so well done.
Also, is it just me, or is like Aisha like one of the most beautiful women ever?
Oh yeah,
it was like,
I am obsessed.
My mom is meeting her this weekend as we speak, by the way.
Really?
Yeah, she's like, because they're at a Pakistani convention for like doctors. So because my parents are doctors, and
wait, I'm going there tomorrow. Are you talking about?
No, yeah, my parents are there right now.
Wait, she's there? You mean
Mehvish Hayat is there. I don't know what day she's doing her meet and greet, but she's supposed to be doing it. Yeah, you have to go meet her.
Yeah, I better go meet her.
I wish I knew more details. I can text my mom and ask her. She's like literally there.
Your mom,
yeah, I will.
we better get pics of this.
Yeah. No, my mom says she was. So my mom's a super fan now. Like she loves this show. It's her favorite show. She is so invested. So she's getting a picture and like for herself, literally.
No, I'm watching it with my wife, and like, that episode was so beautifully done, and she's just bawling her eyes out, but she's also like, but she's so beautiful.
Yeah.
It was awesome. All right, so lightning round really quick. Are we team Bruno, we team Kamran, we team Kareem? Who are we going for?
Go, Maria, you go first.
Yeah. Okay. So I've done some content on this, so I have feelings. Obviously, I obviously see Bruno, and I know his value. I think Kareem is probably the best person for her, but I love a good enemies to lovers trope. I'm there for the drama, and Kamran like just solidified that in the last episode. So I'm when I say this is not the best choice for her, but that's the one I can't wait to see unfold. I'm like ready to see that like relationship. There was a lot of chemistry in that last episode. There was that whole. This is what I loved about the last episode too, was that we got to see her use her power in a way that actually also reflected her personality and the type of hero she is and how important all this growth was. That she was like, even whenever they were fighting damage control, she was actually just like protecting them the whole time.
Yeah.
And you could see Kamran like was attacking them, and it was really just like a play fighting between them, and that was just cute in itself, but also like huge for character development. So I just love that.
I have something to say about that because I'm glad you brought that up. So you know how she's like protecting the cops even though they're fighting her?
Yeah.
The Sheikh literally says, just because someone makes you their enemy doesn't mean you have to make them yours. And I was like, Kamala is like reflecting that in her fighting style, and I love that. That's so cool. That was so cool.
And I love how you said it to Kamran, but it's just that parallel and how it all played out was so good. But I also love the meet cute between her and Kareem and how they play fight too. So I do see like a lot of banter and like he can keep up with her. But like everyone loves the bad boy, so
yeah,
he's the bad boy. Nate in the chat says is Team Bruno, and I gotta speak for Bruno, right, a little bit, because like the boy's is wholesome. Boy, you know, he knows her family. He loves and accepts their culture. He did a dance with them. And even though like obviously he's burning a candle for Kamala, and he walks in on them about to kiss.
Yeah.
Even though it's like, listen, is this the place or the time for this? And like,
that's the best time to do it. That's the best time to do it.
That guy who couldn't get his name right shows up at his place, gets his place blown up, and he's still like he's a good guy, you know?
I
mean? Yeah, no, completely agree with that part.
I feel like he gets the bad rap that comes with being a good guy, where people are like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I don't trust him because he's too nice.
You know what it is? It's I think a lot of people are just, they don't like comic Bruno. People do not like comic Bruno, and I think like MCU Bruno is actually really, really good, but it's hard to let go of comic Bruno and give MCU Bruno a chance. Because I agree, man. He's put in that work. He knows the family. He's making their Alexa. He's doing all these cool things for them.
Yeah.
I love that, and like. I am Team Kamran, but like I could easily be switched to Team Bruno. Like you give me like a few good reasons, and I'm just like, yeah.
I've talked to other like South Asian women about this, and I feel like a lot of my Team Bruno is also just like my experience coming out, which is like we see that hustle, we see his effort, and it's there and it's impressive because like having seen it in real life, we know how much effort. It's just like, you know, that like they're teenagers and there's just like so much that they need to like learn and grow up and figure out for themselves as their identity. So I just know that my friend Pooja, most of the partners as well, is that she probably accidentally put him in the friend zone because of the whole, like she probably shut it down thinking about like culture and religion to begin with. So it's like, I need some growth for them to like, I need them to meet when they're in their 20s, like in their mid 20s, maybe they can date then. It's like high school is just going to be too hard. There's going to be a lot of heartbreak. I see just heartbreak happening for both of them.
The story of Kamala and Bruno in the comics is actually really, really cool. It's really, really nice. Kamala did not want to be here for his friend. He was poor, he was smelly, and Muniba is the one that forces Kamala to be her friend. And Muniba also, he was poor, so Muniba pays for all his services, like all of the school trips, everything. And then she makes him food, everything. So like it's funny because people are always like, a Pakistani mom would never let her daughter hang out with like a white boy. But it's really, in this storyline, Muniba is the one who's making them hang out because she knows that this is someone who is in need. And before all else, if you're Muslim, like before all else, you help people. That's supposed to be your biggest character trait, and everything else is second. So she saw somebody in need, didn't care what his race was, didn't care he was a boy, and she was like, I want you to help him.
I wish they added that because that was something that took me back, because I'm just like, whoa, he's coming to Eid, because like coming to Eid is like a big level. So I was just like, that is like that's like family level. So
they hint at it that he has no family. It's basically his like really, really old grandma, who is also an immigrant, who is taking care of him. And he really has no parents and no family, no cousins, no nothing. So all he has is his grandma. So Muniba takes that to heart and treats him like another child.
It makes so much sense because like I know that like South Asian Pakistani moms are so giving. So it would have been such a like really cute backstory for both of them too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love when they're like, okay, you need a disguise, and the disguise is just hats, which they made fun of in Ant-Man, of course.
Yeah.
And
The halal haram, yeah.
So fun story about that. So that hat is actually a thing. It's like a New York very niche reference. So basically, this guy named Atif Atiq, he is an influencer artist in New York City who's also Pakistani, and he came out with these hats. He had a pop-up shop, and these hats got really, really popular in New York. So it's actually a reference to that. People actually wear these hats. They're very popular.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And it's a bigger reference to the inside joke that exists in general with the culture and like so it's so layered. The show is so smart. They did so much research to do the show.
My co-host talked to the guy, and he said that he asked him if he knew the hats were going to be in the show, and he was like, I had no idea. I was surprised as everybody else.
That's super cool. I love things like that. Just shows how many more layers there are.
Yeah, there really are.
All right, so we had the power set change. How did that sit? I mean, for me, that was a tough thing to swallow, especially when I was like, what? I don't know. I'm curious how it hit you. Any thoughts on that power set change and how it may have improved, or did it add anything? Did it take anything away?
Mario, you want to go first?
Yeah, so it's been like a constant just like dialogue with the whole like, I don't know. It was one of the first things that I had to think about, and because I know what the original story is of Kamala and having that power set, which is the fact that like whenever she had that power to transform into anything, she chose to transform into something that was not like what she looked like, which was a white blonde girl. And I think the story of acceptance is so important and very, very strong, and one that like many people identified with. So that is why the power change was kind of like it was taken so to heart, because like things in the MCU get changed all the time, but like why is this one so special? And it's because of the story. So I think it's really important to acknowledge the fact that storyline is very important and it means a lot to a lot of people. And at the same time, I think the story that they did end up going with was also very important and also meant a lot to a lot of people. It just shows that there's so many stories to tell when it comes to other voices that, we should just give more reasons to make more shows and episodes like this. But I think I'm happy with what they ended up doing with it. Was it a little confusing? Why did they do time travel? All of that. I was asking all those questions, like, is it from her? Is the bracelet? Where's the bracelet from? I do have all these questions, but at the same time, the way it ended up happening, Neebs had brought this up earlier, that it all seemed to set up the Marvels. I'm okay with it because of what they ended up using the power change to be, which was a look into her identity and her family and her history and the culture. So I'm happy with that. I also think that if they did the power change, it probably wouldn't have given Iman as much face time, which I'm really happy that we got to see a Pakistani brown girl as the hero the whole time as well. So overall, I'm happy with it. If you would have talked to me throughout, I would have been like back and forth about what that episode did with the power. So
yeah, for me, the two things that were most important were like when G. Willow Wilson first made this character, she wanted two things, right? One was she didn't want her powers to be pretty. She's like, all super girls get pretty powers. And the other thing is that the whole internalized racism was turning into Carol Danvers. So I was like, if they're not going to have these two things, the whole thing is ruined. Like they don't know what they're doing. But as I watch the show, they find other ways. They find other ways to kind of just like express that. Like when she talks to Kamran, she says ummi instead of mom, and then she corrects herself, right? Yeah. When she's wearing her costume, she puts it around her waist because, she's modest. She doesn't want to wear stuff like other people wear. She's always concerned with other people's stories. And then she ends up learning that the story that her dad used to tell to her all the time is her own story. So like you see it, you still get it. You still get the whole arc of her really realizing who she is, and the internalized racism is still there. So I was happy with that. Then the second part is when I first finally saw the powers being used, they're still goofy. They're still weird looking. When she's doing the little peace signs, I was like,
she does the fit and it's like heavy.
They're not pretty. They're still goofy.
Yeah.
So you got the goofiness still there, and you got the internalized racism and the arc still there. So if you did these two things, I'm okay with the power change. So these two things had made me okay with it.
And then, so we do have another guest joining really quick. Let me go ahead and bring in Lone Wolf 7.
Hey.
Hello.
Yo, what up?
Hey.
What's up?
How you guys doing?
Do all the brown people know each other, or like
I know, right?
Every single person you're bringing on is.
We go way back, right? My first live together on TikTok. My first live on TikTok. Period was with you talking about Miss Marvel, right?
Aw, so cute.
It was like last year around like October. So yeah,
Well,
that's
that's
awesome.
cool. So I always just try to bring on creators of all size of audiences, and just people I just have been enjoying their content and coverage of stuff. It's awesome that y'all know each other already, but yeah, I was curious. So Lone Wolf, just quick do a catch up here. If you could let us know who you are, where we can find your content, and then your overall thoughts on the power set change.
Okay, yeah. So thanks for having me. So go by Lone Wolf 7. That's my gamer tag. Long story behind that, too long to talk about. But real name is Zane, for those of you who are wondering. And I usually make gaming content and comic book content and Dungeons and Dragons content. And yeah, it's been you could find me on TikTok, Lone Wolf 7, Instagram, Lone Wolf 707, the actual digits, and the platform that I always want to promote, twitch.tv/Lone Wolf 7. You guys could watch me play fighting games like Tekken and Street Fighter.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was falling for. It was
Yeah.
oh, fighting games. All right, let's go.
Oh yeah, I originally joined TikTok for fighting game community content, and I somehow fell into comic books and Dungeons and Dragons. Oh yeah,
Sounds about right.
It's a gateway drug. Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, yeah, what were your thoughts on the power set change of Miss Marvel?
So at first, I didn't like them, right? Because their shiny powers, I felt like they were too close to what do you call it? Carol Danvers' powers, and like what Neve said earlier and whatnot about the whole power set change and what it represented. But then the more and more I watched it, I do like it for two reasons. One's a cool reason, one's a kind of a petty reason. The cool reason first is because Surah Nur in the Quran, like one of the verses where it describes like God's light talks about it looks like crystals, right? It's light shining through a crystal. And I thought it was really cool because like her light is very different than Carol Danvers or Monica Rambeau's light. It's crystalline. The second is, and Star Wars fans are gonna hate me, I think she could solo Darth Vader with the MCU power set. And I'll die on this hill. I will straight up have a debate. Anyone, anytime, I will win that.
Oh no! Bold claim.
If MCU, Kamala Khan goes against Kenobi Darth Vader, or even Return of the Jedi Darth Vader, he's losing. And that's why I like those powers. I just want to see almost some girl on top. There you go.
Huh. I do too, but
I would actually say her original power set is more suited for fighting Vader because he couldn't hurt her. Like,
yeah, it's just a polymorph.
Oh, I mean, you know what? I didn't want to die on the hill that both power sets could beat him. But if you say that, then sure, let's go. I will debate anybody.
I'm just saying you can't force choke a polymorph. You know what I mean? Like, there we go.
Yeah, that's true.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
You know what's really funny?
There's something tangible.
Iman just did an AMA on Reddit, and someone asked her like, "Oh, would she be able to? Would she be able to take on Thanos?" She goes, "Nope, I would be unalive."
She just lacks confidence. I'm telling you, with the confidence, she could win.
Iman's such a great actress, though. Man.
Yeah,
they got the perfect cast. She's perfect.
I can't believe this is her first project too. Like that was incredible.
Wow.
Like, and she's like, I didn't even want to be an actor, but like,
yeah.
What do you guys feel on Iman? I mean, I watch a bunch of interviews with her. I'm like, this is like the most adorable human I've ever seen.
Mm-hmm. I adore her so much. I always forget that she is not Kamala. She is Kamala Khan. Like there's no separation of identity. She's fantastic. She sold the show. Like especially the Partition episode. Like her acting. Wow. Like
like I agree. Like when she acts like Kamala Khan, you're like, oh, she's just being herself. But she actually can act. Like there's a scene where she's just looking in the mirror, looking at her body. Like she says so much with her face. Like I don't think people. I couldn't do it.
No. And the fact that this is her debut performance is insane and amazing.
Yeah. Wow.
Someone said this on TikTok. It's not me. It's King of Burbank that getting Iman Vellani into the MCU for this new generation was probably one of the best things the MCU could have done, was by getting an actual fan of the fandom to be leading the new generation. It's like the best move to create like a stronger like voice. And I agree, like they picked the perfect person, like someone who actually enjoys and loves the fandom as is, who want to do it justice. And who's incredible, like perfect, like who was Pakistani and Muslim and like basically the character to a T. So they did really well.
She's so funny because like she's like the person you think you are in your head, but you're too shy to actually be that person.
Yeah.
Like she has fights with Kevin Feige. Like I couldn't do that. I'd be so starstruck. And she's fighting him over 616 versus 1999. Like who does that?
Yeah, her tweets speak for all of us for sure.
Real props to her. Props to that. I like that she has that confidence. It's amazing. I was really worried. One of the things is like, you know, sometimes like young actors and actresses enter the field and, you know, they're kind of, what do you call it? Swayed one way or the other. I don't see that happening with her. Well, she's a geek, but at the same time, she's very strong in her opinions, which is cool. And I love the way she was pushing for Lockjaw, but it didn't happen.
She said she wanted Magnum to be a bulldog just so she can claim he was Lockjaw.
True.
Oh no, I'm sad. That means we might not be getting. Will we get Lockjaw at all?
I don't know.
He was in the Inhumans TV show.
He was in the Inhumans show.
Yeah,
but
we got Black.
If we lose the Inhuman tie there, I mean, but it's not like they can't still be friends. But there was,
they could still get the character.
There's a little bit of a blood feud going on between Inhumans and
no way.
Well, the thing is, when Miss Marvel was first created, right? Like, I know Marvel Comics, the not studios, but comics, was moving away from actually making X-Men comics. They were having trouble getting the license from Sony to make movies, and they're like, well, when we make these comics, you know, it's supporting someone else's movie, right? I forget if it was Fox or Sony. It was Fox, yeah. So like they're like, you know what, let's go. So that, like in the, you know, the first issue when the Terrigen Mist bomb goes off, right? That actually gave her powers, but killed most of the X-Men, right? Like Cyclops died and whatnot. And spoilers if you didn't read it in 2014, I'm sorry, but like a lot of X-Men died during around that time, right? Wolverine lost his powers and stuff like that. So and Wolverine actually died a little later. So I think at that time he got better. They were pushing Inhumans really hard at that time. I really think somewhere, I really want to ask someone, was it behind the scenes that they originally wanted her to be a mutant? But
so I did like one video asking like what happened with the Inhumans. I've never been so like stitched with so many 3-minute videos ever. Like so many people have been giving me like time, and I appreciate because it's like it's mutual with some people that actually want to teach me, but like there just was so much drama. There was a lot of stuff that happened. Like I think that's the original reason, but there was definitely things that I think if they could have, they would have made her immune. If they're but definitely so much happened with like the actual like Inhuman shooting and stuff as well too.
Sana came out and officially said it. She said she wanted her to be a mutant first.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, her first team up was with Wolverine. It wasn't with
And like given the fact that there's so much drama associated with Inhumans, I'm almost happy that they're like kind of just not. I think if they brought her up that she was Inhumans, it would be so much more focused on the fact that Inhumans are here rather than like Kamala Khan is here too. So like I think it would rain on her parade and her introduction and debut as well.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, what do you guys think of the fact that we actually made it through a whole superhero show without like her having to have someone die? Or like, you know, like the way that the story was told is it still ended up being happy. Her family was closer together, and the show, and of course, you know, they did use the partition as the family trauma, which, you know, the heroes are typically born out of trauma. But we ended the show with her fixing her relationship with her mom, her mom's relationship with her grandma, and still being. I mean, her dad is just the coolest. Like. You know, I wish my dad would dress up as the Hulk and like
sweetest man ever.
He's a goat.
So
what do you think of that, of being able to tell a story that didn't rely so heavily on those tropes?
So I've done so many videos talking about this that I feel like we as a society for some reason think dark and edgy is better and like more sophisticated and like high, like a smarter TV. But my favorite shows and the better shows that exist in our modern media are joyful shows. Like they might have trauma and past history, but it's the healing from it that ends up, and like how you can like spin a past heartbreak and make it into something better that like brings joy to the show. So yes, the partition storyline's there, but they spun it in a way that like they were healing from it and growing from it. And I think this show just shows how important. It's harder to write joyful stories. Like it's so hard to write something that is just naturally light and positive. So I know people think The Boys is edgy, but it's like it's so easy to write that. Just take a character, have him have mommy issues that he didn't process. Boom, you have a villain. Like it doesn't take that much effort, but to write a complete character that has processed their problems and trauma and has grown, it's like becoming a superhero. No one passes away. No trope of like that is a scapegoat to actually, growing and developing is so much harder. So the fact that the show exists, it's in the MCU, it's a superhero story, it's what the main character I was, just makes me so happy because like joyful stories are a lot stronger. And I'm really happy it exists here.
I was actually like, one of the things I was really worried about is I was like, because I saw, I think it was your videos, Neebs, where you were thinking, Cameron is going to be the villain.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, come on, can we not radicalize the young boy?
Yeah.
And I'm happy with what they did too.
Yeah, I'm very happy with that, and I hope they keep it that way too. Because who knows who's going to take over the show next, who's going to take over these characters.
Mm-hmm.
But I would hate for them to have a radicalized young Muslim boy, especially considering that's how they're treated in Western media when it comes to like these drone attacks and stuff like that. Like like any boy over the age of 12 is considered a militant statistically. So like a 12-year-old kid gets killed with a drone strike, he's a man, he's a militant. He doesn't get counted as a civilian. Like this is how this and things like this, like this show showing a boy like that directly, infects that. It directly makes people think these things.
And more importantly, like just because the reason why the MCU and superheroes existed in the first place was to imagine yourself in a better situation. Like you wanted these heroes to look forward to, or like have as your own hero. They're meant to be aspirational characters, and TV is always meant to be like a way to like project a better reality, so you can get away from like the hardships that really exist. But it sucked that like in TV, we would also see like our reality being perpetuated. So it's just like, it'd be nice for a Muslim boy to not see what he's expected to be in like real life on TV as well. Like it'd be nice that Kamran is the standard of like, you could have better, you could do better, therefore that audience as well.
So one thing I really liked was, and they brought it up in episode 2, Nakia said that they were trying to pit Muslims against each other, like the good Muslim, bad Muslim trope. And I like one of the things when Kamran got his powers, one of the things like it would have been cool to see, like it would have been cool to see that whole light show fight, but it was the way they set up that fight didn't fall into that trope of good Muslim, bad Muslim, and I'm really happy for that because like and like these are really real programs like CVE, where they ask Muslims to spy on other Muslims in the masjid. And, even in the Black community, COINTEL, the FBI had a COINTEL program. And, I know Neebs just made a TikTok thanking the Black community. And thank you, everyone. But, like, another thing that Muslims learned, this is such a meta thing, that Muslims learned during the CVE, where CVE was really being sold during the Obama administration to masajids. The Black community stood up and was like, guys, don't do this. You don't want to do that. Right. So that's a lesson that we learned from them. So like, thank you for that too. And I'm so glad we didn't go that route of bad Muslim versus good Muslim in the end.
Yeah, they made really good choices with like how they approach that storyline.
And even on a simpler MCU level of not having the end be a fight against someone with the same powers, because that gets that gets old.
Ant-Man.
No
Iron
way.
Man.
What do you mean? I've never done that in my life. What are you talking about?
You know what? I have a comment with that. When people say, "Oh, it's not original, it's not as good as the first movies in Phase 1," I'm like, most of Phase 1 was the same movie. You're
Yeah.
you guys
Yeah.
fighting
Yes.
someone
Yeah.
with the same powers.
Yes.
Now, with respect to Black Panther, even though they had the same powers, that movie was very different than Iron Man, Ant-Man,
Yeah.
Hulk. Even Hulk, people forget about the Hulk, right?
And Shang-Chi did it too. Like Shang-Chi's my favorite movie from Phase 4, but like Shang-Chi did it too. Like nothing against that.
Okay.
He did it too.
Yeah,
So
so
yeah.
like it's different. Like I'm sorry. Like yeah.
It's funny because I made a post to, like standing Kamran before like the finale happened, and literally every comment is literally predicting Kamran's story and how Kamal is going to fight him. Every comment was predicting this, and it didn't happen. And it's just like this is what the whole argument of like it's a played out story, it's not good writing, we need original work. It's like this is the original work. Like it's everything that you thought was going to happen hasn't actually happened in the show yet. So I don't know. The commentary's been weird.
The commentary has been hilarious because it's like, give me something original. This doesn't feel like the other stuff did, so I don't like it. And you're like, those are
what do you
diametrically
want?
opposed things.
Yeah.
You know, and I was so happy to see everyone making fun of that one video of the guys. It's like, oh, I have to watch this show, and you're like, no, bro, you get to watch this show.
I just posted another comment about that.
The irony of him on the floor and getting dragged by the internet.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Do you think he knew? Yeah.
I thought he was trying to get the cheap likes. You know,
Yeah.
there is a certain side of social media that just wants to hate on things and also just wants to hate on, you know,
the show.
Stuff by other people, right? Mm-hmm. And it's just, you know, he was trying to get cheap likes and he got dragged for it. And I do like, especially on TikTok and on Twitter, how a lot of communities got together to back the show. You know, it's kind of like that.
I completely agree.
I don't think it was as big as the Black Panther vibe because, like, Black Panther, we were like buying out movie theaters, right?
Mm-hmm.
But like, I do like it feels good to get that moment.
Yeah. It reminds me a lot of like Shang-Chi because like Shang-Chi is whenever I started creating more content on TikTok. Yeah. And I remember like one of my mutuals, he was saying like there's not been a single campaign for. I think we talked about this too, Choco, about how like Disney didn't do much for the Shang-Chi campaign whenever they're advertising the movie. Like they literally, like we know that they have the money.
Even we're like, we don't know if it's gonna do well. And
like, and so like we literally like my mutuals and I were the ones like advertising free for Disney because like no one else was. And the movie was incredible and like hit billions. And it's really nice to see all the communities come together and like back each other up because clearly we need to.
But you know what? I'm actually glad that on the opposite side, it exposed a lot of people too. Because there were people that I was following and I was like, oh, this is how you feel. I see. Block. Like it exposed people.
Yeah.
And I was like, good. The thing is, be selective about who you follow. Don't just follow somebody because they have a big platform. Just because someone has a big platform doesn't mean they deserve that platform. So see what they say. And if they expose themselves, unfollow them.
It's definitely been a testing time too, because anytime I see someone talk about it of my mutuals, I'm like, what? What are you gonna say?
Yeah.
What was that?
Yeah. There's no Moniba auntie slander, yo. Anything against Moniba auntie is just a straight block.
Dude, that was the.
Oh my! When they're like, oh, her mom is so abusive, and you're like,
what? It did not age well because like by the third episode, she is like helping her with her wounds, like being so supportive, and it's like, where are your comments now? Like,
yeah. And you know what? Some people say like the show makes no sense because rushed. First of all, it's 6 episodes, but like some people I was listening to a review today, and they're like, well, her mom made her a suit just 2 episodes ago. She wouldn't let her go to AvengerCon. And I'm like, if you look at the story, she doesn't give her permission to go to AvengerCon, but she could go to Zoe's party. She messes up a wedding, which is a big no-no in Desi culture, right? Yeah. But then she got to go to Pakistan, right?
And she did let her go to AvengerCon. I made like a whole video about this. She did let her go to AvengerCon. She just wanted to be part of it because that is part of like what our parents want. They just want to be part of the things that we're doing, and they just don't know how. So they do it in their own way. So it's like it's not that they're like don't want us to be happy. They want us to be happy. They just want to be part of it. So like it's just them they didn't understand the assignment.
And you know what? That part of her never went away because even at the end, she sent the chaperone to chaperone a superhero. Like it doesn't matter. Her dad chaperone AvengerCon, her brother chaperone for being a superhero. It doesn't make a difference.
Like I'm a big Pakistani girl with that mother. Like I know Neve sees this. I did a podcast. And she just wanted, like, my mom was really upset that, like, I didn't tell her about the podcast because it was, like, in California time when the show had just released. So I just didn't tell her that I was going to wake up at, like, 4 a.m. and watch this and do a podcast in the basement. So she freaked out, thought I, like, ran away from home. I didn't, obviously. I was still home. She literally was in the garage looking for the car. And I'm just like, what are you doing?
You're
here.
Literally Kamala Khan. When she makes a plan of, like, how to get in the house, you had to make one to get on the podcast.
I literally put pillows in my bed so she wouldn't, like, she would see me and be like, okay, she's sleeping. But then my mom, like, hovered in the podcast to be like, what is she talking about? And the next morning, she's like, I heard you talking about this. And what does this mean? And all this stuff. They just want to be part of the stuff we're doing. So I know from experience, the Munibanti meant well. Like, that's just love showing its light, you know?
And shout out to Anime Addict Girl on TikTok. She, I think, made the best video defending Munibanti. If you haven't looked at her video, check it out. And she's, she lays it all out. That everything Munibanti did was out of love and because of her experiences. And our parents raised us based on their experiences, right? They don't know the current, time.
And like the show shows that trauma. So like, it's like, you have no excuse for it not to be like explained.
Exactly.
And there's so many other communities that can like vouch for it. Like you don't have to be an immigrant parent. Like you can just have strict parents and still be like, we get it. So it's there. I think like the empathy is there. This is why it feels like it's a choice that they're not choosing to like listen to the stories or be empathetic. Because if you can relate to Iron Man, you could relate to Kamala Khan.
Oh yes.
I have a whole thing about when people are like, but they didn't do this in this episode, and then later they did that, and then you're like, that's story. That's
that's development. That's growth. Meanwhile,
it's a retcon. And you're like,
no, it's not.
I don't know. People aren't patient, man. I'm sorry. People aren't patient. And then, same. I don't want to talk about Kenobi too much, but same thing with Grand Inquisitor and Kenobi. It's like you broke canon. It's like, bro, it's like 5 more episodes left. Chill. And then with
but they did that with Reva's story as well. Like we were talking about this. Like had they just watched the rest of the show, they would have understood that Reva was this was for development.
The last episode was the best, just like we knew all along. And you're like, so the climax of the story? The climax of the story did the most? Really?
You know what's cool about? I'm gonna say this. A lot of Disney shows, the last episode is the best, but something with Miss Marvel. Like, I didn't feel that way. I didn't think the last episode was the best. I felt like they all were consistently good. That's how I feel about that show, especially like the one where they go to Karachi and the partition episodes. Like, those were amazing episodes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think every episode was consistently good. And
that's making it a good show. You're describing a good TV show right there.
Oh yeah, true.
Most of the MCU series have been movies broken down, and that's why everything comes together at the end. Whereas Miss Marvel's actually been solid because you can watch every episode by itself and like it can be standalone, and it can come together at the end. Like this is what TV shows usually are.
People watching The Phantom Menace, hold on, Anakin isn't Vader. They're breaking canon. You're like,
oh my god, yeah.
What? So you said you're making a cake. All I see is eggs and flour, and you're like,
Also, I want to track back on the relatability. People saying like, I can't relate to Kamala Khan. Like, Tony Stark is a weapons dealer, right? Vader committed genocide and did a school killing, right? Let's just call it what it is. And then like who relates to Thor, right? I feel like Kamala Khan from every MCU character has been the most relatable, right? We all went to high school. We all had teachers. We all had bullies. We all had to go through that and make new friends and old friends and have to, manage friendships. It's just, to me, it's like, that's something about social media. People want the cheap clicks, and the best way to get cheap clicks is just say what everybody else is saying. And that goes to the Moniba anti-abuse thing, right? Like, what is it? Mental health TikTok was like, that's abuse. It's like, bro, relax. get your degree and then talk. That's my 2 cents about that. Yeah.
It's funny you say that because like I also feel like I don't know. It's just very interesting to see that, especially like the Maniba auntie and stuff like that. Like people just don't realize how like not only just how story works, but like this Kamala is so relatable. Maybe it hits too close to home. Maybe you don't like yourself and you see a reflection of that in you, and it's embarrassing to you, and you don't like that because you in your mind think of yourself as Batman when you're really Kamala Khan, and to see that is jarring.
Yeah.
I actually made a video about since I saw the show early and like saw a lot of like things playing out the way it was. I made a video saying like that is my biggest fear, that like it's going to hit too close to home and people are going to reject it because of it. And then sure enough, that's literally what kind of happened within the community at least. But I also think like a lot of this commentary is just like a reflection of like underlying issues that just exist in our society, just kind of shedding light on fandom culture. Like we see in Star Wars, we're now seeing in the MCU, like people are just showing their true colors of who they really are and exposing themselves truly.
Yeah. Who would have thought a puppet would show their whole ass?
Oh man!
Wow!
And don't forget that Spider-Man Lotus thing that happened a little while ago.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I missed that. I'm kind of happy I did.
Whoa! What's the Spider-Man Lotus? I got Google. There's Spider-Man Lotus. Okay. I'll do it later.
Yeah.
All right. So we talked a bit about Iman. What other performances really like jumped out at you guys as just being like, really well done? I mean, I will say that the whole time all of them felt like a family. It didn't feel like people acting like a family, and I think that's really special.
Sheikh Abdullah had probably 10 lines the whole series, but he was there. Like you knew he was there. Yeah, he made him like name for himself in the few times he was in the show for sure.
You know why that's so important? Because like sheikhs and imams, they're always shown as like fiery and like yelling and like all like super strict. He had a gentle masculinity to him that was shown so well, and I love that. And you never see Muslims shown that way ever.
Yeah. And that's how they exist. That truly like reminds me of my mom. And actually, we had Eid this past weekend, which is like our Muslim holiday, and my mom had like a very similar like khutbah for Eid about like connection and like coming together, and it just like got me teared up because I'm just like, do you watch Miss Marvel? Like, are you like involved in that show? Because it just was so true to their demeanor.
It was the same Eid also. It was the same Eid.
It was.
Yeah. Now people know what Eid is. It's so nice.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Never heard. There was a line in there that I felt hit me really hard is when Damage Control comes in, to the mosque, and they're like, "We're looking for a boy." It's who's between these ages, and I don't know. I just felt like that old Dave Chappelle skit from back before he's was a weirdo. We're like we're looking for a black male between the ages of 18 and 30. Like, whoa, not going outside today. Like,
Yep.
Well, just because you mentioned Dave Chappelle, his brother is a very soft-hearted imam. Like we're talking about Sheikh Abdullah, his brother is just like that. I'm just getting
Dave Chappelle's brother's the imam. What?
Yeah, bro. Like I've heard, you could YouTube him, man. Like he's very. Yeah. Oh, Dave Chappelle is like a different side.
But I love that about the strong, the strength that knows that it's strong, so it doesn't have to be overt. It doesn't have to put down.
But you said it really well with like healthy masculinity.
Yeah, I mean, I think the most masculine thing any man could do is uplift other men and help them be better.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. That was a great performance as well.
I really liked Mavish Hayat and I forgot his name.
Fawad Khan.
Fawad Khan. Like that love story. Like
that could be its own movie.
Yeah, bro, that was a lot of chemistry. That whole which gave and came.
Yeah, one moment to like highlight the importance of good representation. It's because they got people that write those stories to write that story. Like this is why we say it's so important to have representation behind the camera too, with the writers and the producers. They sought people from Pakistan and like India movie industries to write and be in that story that they always do. Like Fawad Khan was acting as if he was doing one of his old Pakistani dramas that has been about the partition. And just this is why the story was so good and hit the way it did. It was with people that knew how to do the story well. And like this is why representation is just it's so many layers to good representation. And I'm very proud of the way the show did it.
That's my favorite couple in the MCU. I think they're the most gorgeous couple in the MCU.
Yes.
It's my favorite couple, and I look at other like romance shows, right? You know, I'm a Bridgerton fan, and I'm just like looking at these two. I'm just like, whoa! Like I got Bridgerton like plus vibes. Right?
This is why like I'm fictional characters have ruined men for me, because it's like I've been growing up and watching these types of love stories my whole life.
Dude, like I would literally go fund a campaign to just have Mavish Hayat in every franchise. Fast and Furious, Star Wars, Paw Patrol, Coco Melon. I don't care. Like put her in every franchise.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love it. Well, all right. What do you guys want to see out of Kamala Khan going forward? You know, we know we're gonna get the Marvels. I mean, and if you guys want to incorporate, you know, the post-credit scene, which I don't know what the hell's going on.
We all should know.
Oh yeah,
like it's not a spoiler anymore.
You know what I really want to see, because there are some characters we didn't get the full story for, right? Like I love Taisha. Taisha Hillman is such a great character. Unfortunately, all her amazing arcs come after they're married, not before. But there's some really good stories with her, and I would love to see more of her in the next season. I think there's a storyline with her. Because she is the person who makes Kamala Khan realize that, hey, Carol Danvers is basically a super cop. Like, I am Black, you are Muslim, you should not be profiling people. She's the one that makes her realize that and go against her own mentor, her own idol. And I think that's such an
Civil War
story.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, gosh, yes. That'd be so
I would love
great.
to see that. I would love to see that story.
I like this. Oh, but that has potential. I really hope they have a season 2. Like, I think there's so many stories that can be told. I think there's so much development that can still happen. And I'm a little nervous because, like, as much as I loved WandaVision, Multiverse of Madness happened afterwards. And it felt like, because it's just like, whenever you do an MCU movie, it's just so much they have to do and build with it that, like, all the characters and development that happen kind of, anyways, so I really hope there's a season 2 of Miss Marvel, because I really think like the way the story is going, the way the character is going will benefit and only get stronger and better for season 2. There's so many great stories that Neve's brought up, and there's just so many great characters that need more time to shine and develop. And they have a good building to something new, like the whole Kamran, if he's going to be a villain, storyline. Now, if she is like the superhero in Jersey, like what does that mean? Now, if she does meet Carol and Monica, what would that do? So maybe the Marvels will be the next project, but I really hope we get a season 2 afterwards, because like I want to see more of the story to continue.
And just to speak to someone you just said, I think there was there's an inherent weakness in the Disney Plus shows telling stories about people that we already know, because they're trying to place these stories where, let's say you didn't watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier. If you stopped with Endgame, you saw Cap handing the shield to Sam Wilson, knowing that he'd be the next Cap. If you watched the show, you would see he's Captain America. So whether or not you watch the show, you understand. Well, most people understand who's Captain America now.
Yeah,
but they try. It feels like they're trying to tell those stories in a way where you knew this character before, and whether or not you see the show, you can continue this as a through line. You know, and I think that was an unfortunate thing to happen with Multiverse of Madness, where it felt like it retread a lot of the same waters, but that's why they had to end it with her picking up the Darkhold, because they already knew the next story they were going to tell with her. This being a new character, I don't think it falls into that at all, and so I think it's a benefit.
I'm a little bit more pessimistic. I do want a season 2. And the reason I want it is because what I worry about the Marvels is Carol Danvers in the comics is not a likable character. Civil War 1, like after reading Civil War 1, I hated Carol Danvers. She's like, she took someone's baby, she was a cop, she took someone's baby to arrest them, right? It's just, she does not come off good. Civil War 2, Lord, like she just went even worse, right? And by the way, when Iron Man 1 came out, I was not an Iron Man fan. Like I hated him from Civil War 1, right? So what I really am worried about is that with Kamala Khan, and by the way, people say no one knows Kamala Khan. Iron Man was not a household name before that.
Yeah.
That was the
that's
He was
point
not
of
a
the whole.
household name.
Yeah, that was like the
Yeah.
initiative of the
None of them were.
MCU.
Thor, Captain America, they weren't popular.
Yeah.
X-Men
They
were
were all
popular.
C-list
Spider-Man were
heroes.
popular.
I remember in
I-
middle school, we played Hangman, and people didn't know who Iron Man was.
I don't know if people know this, but like the whole MCU initiative, because I feel like people don't know this from the discourse, that like MCU started because no one knew, like the Marvel was losing money. All of their popular superheroes were like, bought out by Fox and Sony. And so they had to make money, and they decided to do this thing called Phase 1, where they basically introduced and built these characters so that people would like them, and then eventually go with the storyline. Like this is how it all started. So and the Phase 4 is literally doing that over again.
Yeah, exactly. And I was not
You know
Iron
what
Man.
kills
fan.
me is how few people can actually realize the reason you love Marvel is because you didn't have preconceived notions about these characters, because they really weren't. I mean, there's an old video game where you can play as either Iron Man or Exo Manowar. Now, Exo Manowar is a great character, still hasn't gotten his due, but like just that you had that once upon a time. They actually went to Sony when Sony bought Spider-Man, and I can't remember how much they paid for a Spider-Man. I want to say they paid like $4 million, and then but Marvel's like, all right, but for $6 million you could have everyone, and so Sony was like, who the hell cares about anyone else?
Yeah. Yeah.
Fumble the bag.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, that's what's happening, and that's why DC has had trouble taking off. Is these characters were bigger name characters, and so we get a new Batman. It's not my Batman. It's my Batman. Superman's not. And I mean, some of that has some pretty good validity to it. But like, if they were introducing new characters, I think it'd be a whole different ballgame. Star Wars has the same issue.
Like Guardians, right? Guardians of the Galaxy. Nobody knew any of their characters.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But see, my thing was, and that's why Guardians of the Galaxy didn't need to be comic book accurate. But my worry is Carol Danvers is not likable in the comics. And like, I'm just gonna say, Carol Danvers in MCU didn't do too well, right? It came with mixed reviews.
Understatement.
And
I like her.
and
I
love
I'm
her,
fine with her. But here's the thing. Like, I worry that they may, to prop up Carol Danvers, they may play down Kamala Khan and Monica Rambeau. That's all I worry about. That's a worry. It's just because of past experiences. It's not so much about like Marvel has a bad team, right? It's like, that's why when Miss Marvel was announced, the show, I was reserved. I was on Neves' podcast. I'm like, I have reserved optimism because I don't know, whenever this stuff happens, the way Netflix and other companies represent people of color and Muslims, it's always a miss, and I don't know who's on the team of the Marvels.
That's true.
And props to Sana Amana, Miss Marvel is her baby. She's been in control of that.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's a fair point, because like the Marvels will probably be less about like Kamala and her like identity, but at the same time, it will be like a nice way to see her like act with Monica and Carol. So I hope they do that well. I don't know. I have some hope because of like the MCU's been pretty pleasantly surprising still.
Look at what happened with Scarlet Witch, right? Like Scarlet Witch had like a build, like character development of grief, and then like just to prop up Doctor Strange, some like arrogant rich white guy who's just like Tony Stark, I felt like they ruined Scarlet Witch's character. So it's just a
that's fair.
Yeah, I'm wrong. If I'm wrong, I'll be so happy. All right, just like I was wrong about the show, I'm happy. All right, so
well, I mean, who knows? Here's a pipe dream from myself. If somehow the Marvels can lead into the Ultimates, and have them as a multiversal team or as a cosmic team, I want listen, I need Blue Marvel. I want Blue Marvel in
I
there.
want Blue Marvel.
And I think as a character, I mean, we already saw that they were experimenting with certain things. They're already saying that there were heroes in the past. They're already saying that
Yeah.
we got in Falcon and Winter Soldier, we know that they had the Super Soldier program there that they were
Right.
testing problematically. Adam Brashear's like story of like being a superhero, and then the mask comes off, and they're like, "Oh, he's black. Never mind. We're gonna need you to retire."
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is hilarious. But having if we have, I mean, this is almost like the Ultimates lineup, or at least it's similar. Hopefully, I want to go. I want that. I want Adam in here, and I also need Doctor Doom in here. And I don't believe any of our current Marvel heroes could handle Doctor Doom, and so I need to build up this other team to come do it.
Yeah.
That's
Blue
true.
Marvel is a Marvel. Blue Marvel. They should put him in the movie.
Yeah.
Put Blue Marvel in the movie, guys.
I'm just saying.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I want to thank you guys all for coming out and talking to me. This has been a lot of fun. Yeah, it's been a blast. I learned a lot of stuff. If you guys can go around. Any final thoughts? Anything that we didn't cover? Any things that you think everyone else or you wish other people knew about the culture or anything behind Miss Marvel that we haven't touched on? And then lastly, once again, where we can find y'all in your awesome content. And also, just before that, is anyone else kind of hoping that Armor Wars they're bringing Justin Hammer and he's going to run Damage Control and he's going to turn Damage Control into an agency to police superheroes? That's what I want to see.
Okay.
Because I loved Justin Hammer. He was the brightest spot in Iron Man 2. And I think the problem with that film is they had the wrong villain. But that's a whole side topic.
Yeah.
Good point. Like, I definitely would like to see that. I didn't think about Justin Hammer to be the guy to do it, but I like that. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I don't know what they're doing with the Damage Control storyline because I know they've like built it up since No Way Home, but that would be a direction for sure that I didn't anticipate them taking.
Tony Stark started Damage Control, and now they need
he did a lot.
A Wish.com Tony Stark.
Because of the reveal, like the mutants and the X-Men, I really thought like they would take Damage Control and make it into the MRD, the mutant, whatever they had in the X-Men, the MRD, the mutant. I forgot what the RD stands for. I'm sorry. But I really thought it was going to be like that because it sets up perfectly with Sentinels and whatnot, which would be really... Seeing a Sentinel properly on screen, I'm using the word properly because we have seen it on screen, but properly would be awesome to me. Growing up in the 97 era of X-Men.
Yeah. Love it.
Yeah.
But yeah, your guys' final thoughts and then where we can find you in your content. I'll start with we'll start with you, Lone Wolf.
Yeah, sure. So again, TikTok Lone Wolf 7, Instagram Lone Wolf 707, and Twitch.tv/Lone Wolf 7. I also have a Discord link on my Twitch. You wanted that and what else?
If you have any final thoughts or things that we missed, things that you want to say, things we should know.
So a lot of the artwork in Miss Marvel, like in the house, is actually from Haji Nuruddin, who's like an Asian Turkish Muslim artist. So check that stuff out. Like especially there's one art piece I had to hunt it down. When Moniba Auntie I call her Moniba Auntie, gives Bruno the food, the piece on the side, that's a Haji Nuruddin piece, sick piece, which is interesting because it says with hardship comes ease, right? Which I think was a theme of the show a little bit. So yeah, I just wanted to shout out that artist because I didn't see anyone else shout him out. Haji Nuruddin.
That's cool. I like that.
Yeah.
And Maria?
So you can follow me mostly on TikTok, especially for my Miss Marvel content under Call Me by the Same Maria. Kind of going off the artists, the the music of this show just needs to be emphasized more. Not just even like the tracks that like are from popular music, just the music in the background, like the use of the sitar, the use of the violin, the way they like were able to bring like South Asian like feels to the background music was beautiful. There is a creator, Shiv. She has a running playlist on Spotify that you should follow for every single episode's like track list. But in general, I'm proud of the MCU for this work. And this is why I would say, like, please follow South Asian and Muslim creators, because this show is so smart and there's so much level of detail and thought that was put into it, like the artwork to the music to the actual like history, that you will not be, we are still like processing and trying to get it all. So like if you really want to like enjoy the show and understand the importance of the show, follow these creators, listen to what they have to say, because this is one of a very well-made show in general and for Western media. So I'm proud of the MCU for taking this risk and doing what they did. They made a huge step in media for Muslim representation, South Asian representation, and they finally have a very well done like series. That's a great episode. Every episode was good, and the series in itself was great. And it's a good female character to finally be a superhero as well.
Yeah, definitely. And I will absolutely be checking out that playlist. For my wife, I'm like the tech guy. Well, because I've set up our our servers and all this stuff. Like we actually do have a lot of tech in the house. But when they're in the school, she's like, "Find me this song," and I was like, "I don't know how."
Yeah, no,
Huh?
she found every single song. Like she has, I've checked because I've been like checking out her playlist, and I follow it on Spotify. She has it all. It's great.
That's awesome. Yeah, I normally like Google the lyrics, and I was like, I don't know how to.
It's helpful to know the song first.
Awesome. Last but certainly not least, Neves. Oh, one other thing first. I do have one more hope I wanted to add. I hope she embraces the embiggening powers a lot more, because it's going to be painful to watch her running from place to place.
Oh God. Listen, that works in Jersey City, right? You know, like it's faster to run than it is to get an Uber. Like Jersey City, there's a lot of traffic there.
Okay, that's fair.
But I want to see the stretchy legs. The stretchy legs are what I want to see. I want to see the big stretchy legs.
I just want to see this more.
Yeah. But yeah, Neebs.
So I'm Watch with Neebs. You can find me under that name on YouTube, TikTok, and in Twitter, Instagram. I also have a podcast called Salam Nerds. We have really cool podcasts about tons of topics. And as far as Miss Marvel goes, I think one of the things that I really want to acknowledge Miss Marvel is that, there were South Asians, Pakistanis, and Muslims working on this show, writing for the show, producing this show. They got so many people from just interns all the way up to the showrunner to be Muslim, Pakistani, or South Asian, or anyone from this like diaspora. And the good thing about that is that this is not a gift to us. We're not indebted to anybody. We made this, right? It is an achievement by us. That 98% Rotten Tomato score, that is something we did. It's not something that someone did for us. Someone didn't make this story and wrote it and said, here's a gift to the Muslim community. Look what we did for you. No, we did it ourselves. And I think that's something that goes a long way and it's very proud of. And like I said in my TikTok, this is something that probably would have never happened if it wasn't for the success of Black Panther. Because that was the first story where they let people tell their own story and they saw how great it was and how meaningful it was. And they did that with Shang-Chi and they did that with Miss Marvel.
Yeah, I mean the way you put that is so beautiful. I think of Star Wars is the first thing I go to, but John Boyega talks about how when they did The Force Awakens, they didn't have anyone on staff that knew how to do black hair. You know what I mean? And it's something so small, but it's like that's an oversight. I mean, should you call yourself a hairdresser if you can't do everyone's hair? I don't know, but that's a whole different topic. And that's why having people at every level, there's, like I keep saying, there's so many unknowns that unless you've experienced it, you wouldn't know to look at this. And yeah, I love that we got that here. But yes, thank you everyone here for hanging out. For everyone in the chat, this will also be uploaded everywhere pods are cast. And I love talking to all of you guys, and I will be hopefully bringing you back for all different. You don't have to only come on when it's brown people business. We can talk other stuff. But yes, thank you everyone.